The Galactic Concord had always believed that humanity was predictable. Chaotic, yes. Reckless, certainly. Inventive to the point of self-endangerment, absolutely. But predictable. Every species that joined the Concord eventually passed through the same stages: discovery, enthusiasm, regulation, compliance. The Senate scholars assumed humans would follow the cycle like everyone else. They were wrong. For decades, short-range teleportation had been a subject of heated debate across the galaxy. The Trelvori demonstrated a catastrophic accident where half a laboratory disappeared into a localized fold. The Othari brought forward data showing microscopic time slips caused by spatial jump bursts, harmless at first, until accumulated distortions created months of temporal drift. Even the usually calm and contemplative Arisen Collective admitted that repeated short teleports caused subtle but irreversible quantum echoes, as if reality itself developed a stutter. Species after species testified before the Concord Senate with dire warnings and holovids of experiments gone horrifically wrong. Humanity listened to each account with visible fascination. They nodded seriously, whispered to each other, took notes, and occasionally asked very pointed questions, such as, how short is too short? And is it dangerous if done extremely fast? Or the more ominous, does the law specify intended use or functional use? By the end of the hearings, almost every delegate could feel a migraine forming. When the unanimous ban finally passed prohibiting any short-range teleportation technology for transit, logistics, military maneuvering, or any practical purpose whatsoever, the Senate breathed a collective sigh of relief. The universe, they believed, had been saved from one of the most treacherous technological paths ever conceived. And humanity, unusually agreeable that week, signed the compliance document with cheerful smiles. But something in those smiles should have warned them. Because while every other species interpreted the ban as a stern warning to never touch the technology again, humanity examined each line of the legislation with the predatory focus of a species that had once turned explosions into a method of transportation and radiation into a medical tool. They read the law, reread it, and then reread it again, this time with lawyers, engineers, thrill seekers, and marketing executives in the same room. It was in that very meeting, according to later interviews, that humanity had its collective epiphany. The law banned teleportation as a useful tool. It never banned teleportation as an experience. The realization moved through human society like electricity through copper. What started as a joke on social media, what if we turned dangerous teleportation into a ride? Became a serious proposal within a month. Engineering forums turned into brainstorming centers. Quantum mechanics students dropped everything to design safe-ish teleport grids. Companies raced to file patents with names like non-transit teleportation, recreational device, and quantum entertainment displacement chamber. Every attempt to regulate this frenzy only encouraged them further. The galaxy watched in confusion as humans enthusiastically announced open hiring for teleportation ride testers and volunteers comfortable with mild temporal disorientation. When asked why they were investing so heavily in a technology that had just been outlawed, humanity simply replied, "We're not using it for anything practical." The Concord sent inquiries. Humans responded with smiling recordings, explaining that teleportation for recreational, artistic, emotional, or entertainment-based experiences was not mentioned anywhere in the ban and therefore fell outside the scope of regulation. The linguistic division of the Senate spent 3 straight weeks searching for any clause covering the loophole. There was none. The ban had been written by species who assumed no sane civilization would ever repurpose dangerous technology for amusement. They had not accounted for humans. By the time the Senate drafted a follow-up motion to clarify the wording, it was already too late. Humanity had invested billions of credits and had built entire orbiting facilities dedicated solely to creating the galaxy's first teleportation amusement park. They held press conferences with engineers explaining that they had solved most of the catastrophic risks, which raised many eyebrows when reporters asked which ones remained. Humanity cheerfully admitted that a tiny risk is part of the fun. And this was the moment the galaxy finally realized the truth. Humans did not slow down when faced with danger. They accelerated. They innovated. They giggled. They pushed boundaries simply to see if the boundaries would push back. So when Blinkworld opened on Luna Station 6 with its massive neon sign THEG LAXYB ANNEDIT WEMADEE ITFUN, the Concorde shock was absolute. The Senate called an emergency assembly. Delegates shouted. Entire species demanded sanctions. But all of that noise died instantly the moment the first tourism reports arrived. Tens of thousands of aliens were already in line. Every major hyperstream network was broadcasting reviews. Humans were celebrating their new quantum carnival, and the galaxy, horrified yet curious, couldn't look away. The Concorde had tried to prevent humanity from using short-range teleportation. Instead, they had inspired humanity to create the most reckless entertainment industry the Milky Way had ever witnessed. And this was only the beginning. The opening of Blinkworld on Luna Station 6 arrived like a shockwave. No official warning preceded it. No press release in the usual galactic networks. The only clue was a flickering neon sign visible from low orbit, scrawled in 8 languages and every major galactic dialect: THEGALA, XYBANAD, IT, WEMADEITFUN. The message alone was enough to turn heads across systems. Aliens, who had watched humanity's previous ventures with cautious amusement, now stared in disbelief. Blinkworld was not a laboratory experiment, nor a testing ground for engineers. It was a fully operational amusement park built entirely around the very technology that the Concorde had spent centuries outlawing. Inside, the main attraction was deceptively simple: a lattice of shimmering teleportation rings suspended over a glittering floor. Each ring represented a quantum jump, a literal displacement of 1 meter to the left or right. To the engineer's eyes, it was elegant. To thrill seekers, it was terrifyingly fun. Aliens lined up, unsure whether they would emerge intact, phased, or worse, turned inside out. Many had traveled light years out of morbid curiosity, half expecting to witness human ingenuity end in spectacular failure. Instead, they found an almost absurdly cheerful scene. Humans of all ages jumped through the rings, shrieking, laughing, and occasionally falling into piles of giggling friends. The stoic Kethri, a species renowned for their complete lack of emotional display, vibrated audibly in the queue, a deep, resonant hum the park cleverly marketed as the sound of joy. Reports from their diplomats would later describe it as both alarming and intoxicating. The Arisen Collective, normally reserved and precise, registered what they later described as a significant cognitive anomaly in their observers: a mixture of fear, exhilaration, and irresistible curiosity. Even the most cautious delegates admitted to secretly taking turns on the rides, though no one would ever publicly acknowledge it. Human engineers, proud as festival kings, wore shirts stamped with SAFAT, YTHIRD, and merchandise kiosks hawked miniature teleportation rings for visitors to take home. Parents encouraged their children to race through multiple rings at once, and some of the more adventurous species attempted to map the micro-jumps with their own instruments, only to emerge dizzy and thoroughly exhilarated. Alien physicists, who had spent years warning their peers that short-range teleportation was inherently unstable, were forced to admit privately that the human implementation somehow worked at least well enough to survive the experience. The rides were carefully calibrated. The human designers had ensured that each jump stayed within 1 meter, carefully avoiding any destabilization of surrounding space-time. Theoretically, this limited distance was safe. Practically, it was enough to create the illusion of chaos. Visitors felt the thrill of the unknown with every flicker, every shimmer, every instantaneous shift in location. Humans, it seemed, had found a way to engineer fear, joy, and exhilaration into the very fabric of physics and sell it as entertainment. What truly stunned the galaxy, however, was humanity's attitude. Where other species would have responded to such a ban with trepidation, negotiation, or outright rebellion, humans responded with a wink and a grin. "It's banned for practical use," they said. "But who said we can't play?" Their lawyers argued in press conferences that the Concorde's law had never prohibited recreational teleportation. Engineers explained the micro-safety protocols. Marketing executives insisted that joy was not a crime. Scientists offered demonstrations, proving that, statistically, no more than 0.3% of visitors would experience serious harm. And when asked about the remaining risk, humans shrugged cheerfully and said, "A little risk makes it exciting." The galaxy's reaction oscillated between horror, fascination, and grudging admiration. Trade networks buzzed with orders for tickets. Alien celebrities posted glowing holo reviews, and interstellar tourist vessels began rerouting entire vacation schedules just to include Luna Station 6. The Concorde, for all its authority, found itself powerless. Any attempt to intervene would have been met with a legal argument crafted by humans who could simultaneously charm and outwit the most patient bureaucrats in known space. Blinkworld became a cultural phenomenon almost overnight. Alien news networks broadcast human guests leaping through quantum rings, their bodies shimmering in multiple, slightly displaced afterimages. Holo recordings of the rides flooded social media channels, often accompanied by the ubiquitous human commentary. "If your atoms get scrambled too much, the staff gives you a free t-shirt." Critics from across the galaxy described it as an unparalleled fusion of entertainment, physics, and gall. Some feared it, others envied it, and nearly all wanted to try it. Behind the scenes, human engineers were already brainstorming expansions. Multi-node circuits, strobing arrays of teleportation chambers, and interactive obstacle courses that required riders to teleport in sequence, all were under construction. Each new innovation promised to push both the thrill factor and the limits of safety, carefully balanced to comply with the letter of the law while utterly ignoring its spirit. By the end of its first operational cycle, Blinkworld had already earned the distinction of being the most successful entertainment enterprise in the galaxy. Every alien visitor who returned to their homeworld spoke of it as an experience that redefined amusement, A dangerous, exhilarating, and utterly human triumph over fear, regulation, and convention. The Concorde, meanwhile, convened emergency sessions, passed dozens of proposals, and attempted to draft stricter regulations. Humanity responded with polite explanations, minor adjustments, and, occasionally, entirely new attractions. The galaxy had expected chaos, collapse, or at least a spectacular accident. Instead, humans had taken the forbidden, the dangerous, and the illegal, and made it fun. They had weaponized creativity and lawyering to transform fear into amusement, and the universe had no defense. And so, in a moment that would later be described as both terrifying and awe-inspiring, Blinkworld opened its doors, and humanity's challenge to the galaxy's assumptions began in earnest. The Concorde may have banned teleportation, but humans had already discovered something far more potent: the ability to make anything, even cosmic law, into an experience worth lining up for. By the time Europa Station unveiled the next human amusement marvel, the galaxy had already stopped trying to control Earth. Blinkworld was only the beginning, a mere proof of concept in humanity's audacious plan to turn forbidden technology into entertainment. Jumpstorm, as the engineers called it, was designed to make Blinkworld look like a kindergarten playground. The station itself was a sprawling, gleaming structure of glass, chrome, and pulsing energy nodes, suspended above the icy plains of Europa. From the outside, the station looked like a constellation trapped in a cage of quantum beams, with tunnels of flickering light winding in every conceivable direction. The signage was unmistakably human: ENTERYOUDAYUMPSTORM, The ride itself was a chamber filled with hundreds of micro-teleport nodes, each pulsing in chaotic, mesmerizing patterns. Guests entered a narrow tunnel, their steps triggering sensors that launched them into near-instantaneous relocations across the room, as if reality itself had stuttered. Riders found themselves blinking from one point to another, never quite sure where they would land, their senses overwhelmed by light, motion, and the adrenaline-induced hum of near-quantum displacement. Alien physicists, stationed nearby to monitor the ride's effects, fainted repeatedly, only to be revived by staff wearing oversized gloves, and cheerful first-timers survive. Badges. The human engineers, unfazed, announced with pride that the ride had been meticulously calibrated to ensure that no guest would experience more than a minor disorientation, a phenomenon humanity labeled temporary exhilaration. Species that had long studied humans with clinical detachment now found themselves gasping in amazement. The stoic Kethri quivered visibly as they were bounced from node to node. The normally reserved Arisen Collective members experienced perceptual distortions so profound that their meditative sequences required hours to recover. Even the Athari, whose very existence had been dedicated to studying risks of short-range teleportation, emerged pale and jittery, clutching photo badges that captured multiple afterimages of themselves mid-teleport. The ride's official slogan, "If you survive, you get a holophoto," became the unofficial motto of every species daring enough to enter. While Jumpstorm's thrill factor made it headline news, it was the quantum drop that solidified humanity's reputation as masters of calculated chaos. This was a vertical plunge, a towering shaft of shimmering energy that appeared at first glance to be a simple drop ride. But the mechanics were anything but simple. Instead of allowing gravity to dictate motion, The quantum drop used a series of rapid, staggered teleportation pulses to simulate falling in a sequence of micro-jumps. Riders experienced the terror of plummeting hundreds of meters while never actually moving faster than their own body could endure. Each pulse was an imperceptible relocation, enough to make the stomach lurch, the heart pound, and the mind scream in thrilling panic. Humans described it as the fall without the fatality. The quantum drop was more than a ride. It was a philosophical statement. Guests often reported feelings of existential exhilaration, a surreal understanding of motion, time, and personal limits. For the more scientifically minded, the ride provided an accidental lesson in quantum uncertainty, multi-dimensional spatial awareness, and the delicate art of human engineering that balanced on the razor's edge of cosmic law. Some species called it spiritual. Others called it madness. Humans called it Tuesday. Media coverage exploded. Holo streams from the quantum drop went viral across hundreds of systems. The human marketing department cleverly released footage showing riders mid-jump, captured in a series of afterimages that shimmered like temporal ghosts. The captions were as audacious as the technology itself, not just a ride. A test of courage, a flirtation with the laws of physics. Entire worlds signed contracts to build regional branches, and alien tourism networks began offering multi-system passes explicitly for the purpose of riding human teleportation attractions. Despite the popularity, the Concorde's anxiety grew. Emergency meetings were convened. New regulations were proposed, aimed at clarifying the ban's spirit as well as its letter. Humanity, however, had anticipated every objection. Legal teams had meticulously combed through the legislation, ensuring that every ride remained compliant with the law's wording. Practical transportation? Forbidden. Entertainment? Explicitly allowed by omission. Risk management? Carefully optimized to avoid catastrophic outcomes, while leaving a generous margin for adrenaline, laughter, and mild terror. In response to the Senate's complaints, humanity published detailed operational protocols and safety reports, demonstrating that even rides that seemed like they would tear reality apart adhered to physical limits. Scientists were available to answer every question. Tour guides explained every node's calibration, every pulse's energy output, and every safety threshold. Yet, even the most skeptical observers could not deny the truth. Humans had transformed the forbidden into something desirable, and the galaxy was powerless to stop it. The rides became cultural phenomena. Multi-system tours were arranged for dignitaries, students, thrill seekers, and the curious alike. Alien celebrities appeared in holo broadcasts, smiling and shrieking as they careened through Jumpstorm or plummeted down the quantum drop. Merchandise exploded in sales. Miniature teleportation nodes, glow-in-the-dark afterimage figurines, holo postcards capturing mid-jump expressions, and even virtual reality simulators designed to replicate the sensation for those unwilling to risk their atoms in person. And all the while, humanity's engineers were scheming even bigger projects. Multi-node obstacle courses, interactive mazes of blinking nodes, teleportation arenas where participants competed to reach multiple endpoints simultaneously. The ideas poured forth, fueled by imagination, humor, and a fascination with pushing the boundaries of safety and thrill. Every ride, every invention, every innovation was a subtle challenge to the galaxy itself. Humans had taken up banned technology and found a way not only to survive it, but to make it enjoyable, profitable, and spectacular. By the time the first annual reviews of Europa Station's attractions were compiled, the consensus was unanimous. Humanity had redefined the meaning of entertainment. The rides broke physics, defied conventional wisdom, and left entire civilizations simultaneously horrified and exhilarated. Critics called the experiences beautifully reckless, alchemically daring, and, in some reports, a dangerous yet undeniable triumph of joy over caution. The galaxy, watching from afar, could only marvel. The Concorde had banned short-range teleportation, intending to control danger. Humanity had transformed it into the most exhilarating art form in known space. And yet, somehow, the laws of physics, the rules of safety, and the authority of interstellar governance remained intact, albeit slightly more frightened and profoundly more impressed than ever before. By the time the Concorde realized it could no longer ignore the scale of human ingenuity, it was already too late. Blinkworld and Jumpstorm had set the stage, the quantum drop had shattered expectations, and the galaxy's collective curiosity had reached a fever pitch. Reports flooded the Senate daily. Hundreds of thousands of visitors, interstellar tourism revenues beyond anything previously recorded, and an unsettling number of alien diplomats and scientists openly admitting they had experienced the rides themselves. The Concorde had legislated the ban, yet humans had found a loophole so audacious it was almost philosophical. If you outlaw something for utility, why forbid its existence as a source of joy? With urgency mounting, the Concorde dispatched a special commission to investigate. Leading the team was Valoran, a senior elder of the Arisen Collective, and a diplomat renowned across the galaxy for her patience, wisdom, and the ability to negotiate peace between civilizations whose very communication relied on ritualized combat. She was meticulous, deliberate, and, above all, capable of withstanding prolonged exposure to chaos, yet even she was unprepared for what awaited on Luna Station 6. Valoran's arrival coincided with the opening of Blinkworld's newest seasonal attraction, an expansion that doubled the number of teleportation rings and introduced a synchronized flash pattern designed to create afterimages of riders in 5 distinct locations simultaneously. Alien visitors lined up with expressions ranging from terror to giddy curiosity. Valoran, in full ceremonial robes, stepped through the shimmering entrance with a measured calm. Her delegation observed quietly, expecting perhaps an amusing but ultimately minor anomaly. The first teleport jump struck her with an intensity she had not anticipated. As her atoms shifted fractionally within the ring, her perception of space fractured. She appeared to exist in multiple locations at once, each afterimage superimposed imperfectly over the others. Her frills, which Arisen elders used to convey emotional state, flared a vivid neon green, a visible declaration of cognitive shock. The children around her squealed with delight, darting between rings as if to invite her into their play. One human, no more than 8 years old, leaned in and whispered matter-of-factly, "If your atoms get scrambled too much, the staff gives you a free t-shirt." Valoran blinked in disbelief, unable to process whether this was a joke or a profound statement on human values. The second ride, Jumpstorm, was worse. The chamber pulsed with hundreds of micro-teleport nodes, each flickering in unpredictable patterns. Guests experienced dislocations in space, so subtle yet rapid that the mind struggled to map motion, time, and location coherently. Valoran's consciousness fractured briefly, a state that her species' medical texts described as a Class 5 existential emergency. For a moment, she existed in two overlapping locations, her perceptions doubling, then tripling, each afterimage slightly misaligned with the next. She clutched at the walls, her delegation prepared to intervene, and yet the human attendant smiled brightly and handed her a holophoto showing the exact moment her body split into four distinct afterimages. The caption read, YUUURVIVEDTHEETORM. Valoran struggled to maintain composure as the ride concluded. The experience was terrifying, exhilarating, and, strangely, enlightening. For hours afterward, she could not stop contemplating the nature of human perception, risk, and ingenuity. Where other species would have recoiled, sued, or outright refused, humans embraced the chaos as a challenge, a game, a test of courage. The final inspection was the quantum drop. Standing at the precipice of the vertical shaft, Valoran noted the trembling anticipation in visitors' eyes, both human and alien alike. The ride's genius lay in its paradoxical design. Riders felt the terror of plummeting hundreds of meters, while actually remaining physically safe, transported downward in micro-increments via teleportation pulses. Gravity, momentum, and fear were harnessed into a meticulously engineered illusion of falling. Valoran experienced the plunge, her perception of space and time expanding and contracting as quantum pulses moved her incrementally downward. Her body registered the terror of a free fall, her mind the exhilaration of overcoming it. By the time she emerged, pale and trembling, she whispered to her aides, "Humans willingly do this." Her aides nodded, simultaneously horrified and impressed. After the rides, Valoran convened the commission to compile its findings. Her report was meticulous, covering the physics, engineering, and regulatory compliance of each attraction. She described the human approach as simultaneously reckless and brilliant, noting that their culture had redefined the concept of risk, creativity, and enjoyment. In conclusion, she wrote a single line that would reverberate through the Senate and across the galaxy. Humanity is not dangerous because they break rules, but because they find joy in the places where rules fear to tread. Her statement caused immediate debate. Some delegates argued that the report underestimated the potential long-term risks of human amusement engineering. Others argued that humanity had already proven themselves capable of navigating danger with precision, and that their innovations were likely to yield cultural, economic, and even technological benefits for the galaxy. The Commission's unanimous conclusion was that no immediate action could or should stop humanity from continuing their work. Valoran herself left Luna Station 6 profoundly changed. Where she had expected chaos and catastrophe, she found artistry, courage, and a profound redefinition of risk. She understood, perhaps better than anyone in the galaxy, that human ingenuity was not to be contained. It thrived precisely where fear, caution, and regulation sought to limit it. Humanity did not just bend rules, they understood rules as guidelines, flexible frameworks within which they could explore, experiment, and innovate. And so, as she submitted her report, the galaxy began to realize an uncomfortable truth. Humans were not merely surviving the ban on short-range teleportation. They were redefining it. The rides were not anomalies or flukes. They were statements, proofs, and invitations. Humanity had transformed forbidden technology into art, science, and entertainment simultaneously. The galaxy could no longer treat humans as a species to be managed or restrained. Humanity was in full command of its destiny, and they had just begun to show the universe what that could look like. The Senate chambers were in chaos. Delegates shouted, slammed holodocuments on tables, and demanded immediate action. Humanity had done the impossible. They had taken a technology that the Concorde had explicitly forbidden, turned it into an interstellar amusement empire, and done so without violating the letter of the law. Blinkworld, Jumpstorm, and the quantum drop had proven the point. Lines of visitors stretched for kilometers across spaceports, and interstellar tourist vessels now rerouted their schedules exclusively to accommodate human-built teleportation rides. Galactic tourism had reached levels no economist had predicted, and the Concorde faced a dilemma unlike any in its history: intervene and risk a political, cultural, and economic disaster, or accept that humanity had effectively rewritten the rules of engagement for civilization itself. The debates raged for months. Some species argued that human amusement parks represented a direct threat to interstellar stability, claiming that even carefully calibrated rides could produce catastrophic accidents if scaled up or mismanaged. The Athari presented theoretical models predicting localized quantum fluctuations and potential time echoes. The Arisen Collective warned that the very notion of risk manipulation in this manner could destabilize philosophical norms and ethical frameworks across the galaxy. Other delegates, however, argued for pragmatism. Humanity had demonstrated incredible skill, creativity, and responsibility in managing the rides. They had obeyed the literal wording of the law while pushing its spirit to the brink. Banning them now, critics argued, would alienate one of the most dynamic and culturally influential species the galaxy had ever encountered. Ultimately, practicality won. The galaxy discovered a truth that many would later call humbling, others terrifying. Humans were untouchable within the bounds of creativity. Laws could regulate behavior, treaties could impose sanctions, but humanity had discovered a loophole far older and more powerful than legislation. It was the human imagination itself. The Senate reluctantly acknowledged that, for the time being, the rides would continue. And not only would they continue, but the galaxy's economy, entertainment networks, and scientific curiosity would be fueled by them. The Concorde had banned short-range teleportation, yet it was humanity's reinterpretation that defined the technology's legacy. Meanwhile, humans were not idle. Engineers, designers, and thrill-seekers across the Sol system brainstormed new attractions that stretched physics, perception, and patience to the limit. Multi-node obstacle courses, interactive teleportation mazes, and complex relay challenges where visitors had to coordinate microjumps across dozens of nodes were in development. Holo simulations predicting the behavior of participants were tested and retested, but always, the underlying goal was the same: make forbidden technology fun, immersive, and unforgettable. Across Europa, Luna, and the orbital resorts near Mercury, construction cranes hummed, quantum cores pulsed, and the unmistakable scent of ozone mingled with the scent of ambition. Even the Concorde found itself unable to resist the lure. Secret delegations from the Athari, who had spent decades warning against the dangers of teleportation, were quietly booked on rides under the guise of scientific evaluation. Arisen scholars, who had once meditated in perfect equilibrium, now openly debated the ethical implications of human amusement engineering while trembling in the corridors of Jumpstorm. Diplomats from other species lined up like tourists themselves, sometimes with apprehension, often with giddy excitement, secretly craving the thrill of what they had once called the most dangerous technology in the galaxy. To commemorate the situation, humanity built a gift shop adjacent to the Concorde's main chamber. Here, miniature teleportation nodes, aftermage figurines, holo postcards, and even VR simulations of rides were sold to delegates, diplomats, and tourists. Merchandise bore slogans like "Defy Physics," "Enjoy Life," and "If atoms split, it's part of the fun." Humans treated the gift shop as a practical extension of diplomacy, blending commerce, culture, and amusement into a single irresistible package. And yet, the most audacious demonstration of human ingenuity was yet to come. Far beyond the orbital resorts, on the edge of known space, a massive construction dome flickered to life. Neon signs illuminated the void, boldly announcing COMINGSOON, THEVO, IDAWHIRL, THESES, ESEOAPI ETIONRO, ELL, OLLAA, a TSTA year, USCR, UHERE, YUSTARTED. Lines formed almost instantly, with visitors eager for the ultimate test of courage, luck, and trust in human engineering. Speculation ran rampant. Some feared disaster. Others predicted transcendence. Humans advertised it as the ultimate experience in thrill and uncertainty, unapologetically pushing the limits of law, physics, and imagination simultaneously. The galaxy had once tried to control humanity by banning a technology. Humanity responded, not with rebellion, not with argument, but with amusement. They took the forbidden, the dangerous, and the impossible, and transformed it into something that brought joy, terror, and wonder to millions of beings across hundreds of star systems. Galactic laws could regulate behavior. They could restrict movement, commerce, and travel. They could impose sanctions or warnings. But they could not legislate creativity, courage, or the irrepressible human desire to explore the edges of possibility. In the end, the galaxy learned a profound lesson. The Concorde had banned short-range teleportation to protect civilizations, to prevent accidents, and to maintain order. Humanity, in turn, had demonstrated that order could coexist with chaos, that danger could coexist with delight, and that a species unafraid to play with the universe itself could redefine the rules of reality. The rides were not merely amusement. They were proof that humans were not a species to be controlled, feared, or ignored. Humanity had taken a banned technology and made it an experience that united curiosity, bravery, and sheer joy across the stars. And somewhere, at the far reaches of the Milky Way, the first visitors queued patiently for the void whirl, ready to test the very limits of teleportation, law, and perception. Lines stretched across platforms. Ships hovered overhead, and the human engineers behind the curtain smiled knowingly. The galaxy had banned short-range teleportation. Humanity had made it the greatest attraction ever created, and they were only getting started. The stars themselves seemed to shimmer in anticipation, as if aware that a new era had begun, a human era defined not by compliance or caution, but by audacity, ingenuity, and the irrepressible desire to turn the impossible into wonder.